Welcome everyone to Lotus Chat again. This week is episode 17 and we're going to talk about women and overthinking thoughts. It's one of my favorite topic. And today we have a full house today and say hello everyone. So kicking off the topic, I wanted to start with our first prompt today, which is describe a time where your mind is racing and you didn't have control of your thoughts. Tell us a little bit about that, Jen.
Oh, well, first, this is a wonderful topic and I'm glad we're discussing it this week. And yes, overthinking. So first, I would like to say that it is definitely something that not only we as women do, but I feel like men also. So overthinking is a very human, I would say, behavior in a way, in that in my case, and I know I've probably brought it up in past episodes about my relations with others, in particular with significant others, overthinking in reflecting on my past has definitely played a role in a lot of how I've related to the person I was with. And most recently, it definitely is something that came to the forefront. And I mean, you can go into any situation expecting things to go a certain way, and you can really expect it to be what you pictured and or anticipated. And sometimes, I mean, things surprise you. And in my case, it was the fact that I realized that there were still some things that I needed to work on when somebody literally told me, Jen, you were in your head the entire time. I didn't feel like you were really receptive to me and or open, because I felt like you were just either thinking about something, worried about something, anxious about something. So unfortunately, like, I just didn't feel like there was a quote unquote polarity. So in that sense, and let me explain, because in the moment I did not understand what he meant by a lack of polarity. But when it comes to the whole masculine, feminine ways that we relate to each other, and I'm not talking about male or female gender, I'm talking about like the energy. And I know my wonderful Lotus lady Jazzy will go more in depth into what that all entails. But in my case, I was not being receptive to him because I was in my head and I was not allowing myself to be in the present moment. And that is what overthinking sometimes does. It doesn't allow you to really be in that moment with that person because you are thinking that something's going to go wrong, or you're thinking the past is going to repeat itself, or you're thinking, you know, XYZ. And now that in reflecting, because it did end up with me reflecting on it, I realized that there were things that I wish I could have done differently. And I realized that it wasn't only in this relationship, but in past relationships where that has definitely played a role in my relationships not working out. And I invite everybody out there who's been in that situation where you're in a relationship where you just feel like there is a disconnect, or you feel like there's a block, or you feel like there's some type of overthinking going on from either you or your significant other, to really open the space to have a conversation then and there. I did not open that space. And for that reason, unfortunately, the relationship kind of went south. So in terms of overthinking, that is my experience. Again, I welcome everybody to reflect and to open that space for discussion when in a relationship where you feel that is present, so that you guys can come to a sense of understanding, and definitely open the door for more openness, more reciprocity, more energy exchange, because overthinking can block a lot of things in your life, not just relationships. So definitely just try to be aware and try to stay open. And the mind can play crazy tricks on you, so just try to stay open. What about you, Laura?
Oh, wow, Jen, thank you for sharing. That was really powerful. I learned a lot. Thank you. As I was pondering the question, I realized that I tend to overthink when I'm fearful and I won't possibly have control. I used to do a lot of overthinking. I did it in relationships because I was looking for external validation. I was looking for what someone thought or what someone said or what they didn't say. And when I didn't get it, I was overthinking of how to get it. What did I need to do? How did I need to adjust myself or my behavior so that their reaction would mirror what I needed inside of me? That takes a lot of energy. And like you said, Jen, then you're looking to the future. You're trying to plan strategically instead of enjoying the moment. And I'm sure that I have relationships in my past that because I was looking for validation on the outside, I was looking for the future, I missed the present. The other area as a single mom that I really struggled with was money. I grew up with scarcity of money. And so as a single mom, I felt like it was scarce. And so there was always this fear, would there be enough? How would I feed my son? How would I pay the bills? And that is a scary place to be when your mind is just spinning on how to get more money or how to make ends meet. And the reason I use both relationships and money is there are a lot of different things that make us overthink, but usually there's something in it in one of those topics, relationships or money, because those are things that our society says are important. What I'm thrilled about on my overthinking is I wore out. I mean, you can wear out overthinking. You can take yourself and just go like this. And so at that point, I knew I needed help. And at that point, I was able to learn techniques on how to slow my mind down and how to practice living and being in the present. Had you told me when I first started the journey, I would be able to do that, I would have laughed because my mind was active. But there are ways to do that. But I had to literally wear out from worry, wear out from anxiety, because my mind just spun. And what I realized was I was trying to protect myself. I was trying to protect myself from what I was afraid of. And I ended up creating the reality that I was afraid would happen because I was creating it with my mind. And I don't mean to be woo-woo here, but I was manifesting what I didn't want to have happen because it was all I thought about and how to avoid it. So it was probably the best lesson I learned is how to avoid spinning in my mind and how to practice living in the moment. And life is richer. Jazzy, I want to hear from you.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. I totally related to what you were sharing about being a single mom and the overthinking of, will there be enough? Will there be enough to take care of childcare, which is looking like a mortgage payment these days? Taking care of food and, like housing is inflated, all these things. Like I've been there, feeling all the funk of it from Chatty Catty's breath, whatever her name is. And I realized that process, it does create this anxiousness and this imbalance in the way that I want to stand strong in my present moment. So when I find that I'm in that position of like, what's not there, I have to remind myself that's my red light. That's my tell for now it's time to start thinking about new possibilities that I can create. Another way that I would experience overthinking is when I'm going to do something. Like say I needed to speak before, I used to have really huge anxiety and this overthinking. If I'm going to deliver it right, is what I'm going to say like come off correctly? Are they going to get me? Are they going to hear me? Do I look okay? Is this? And then everything would just be this traffic jam in my brain, not really conducive to any growth, but it definitely like just I wasn't present because I was in fear. All that overthinking was in fear, which was false evidence appearing real. And so if I'm looking at false evidence appearing real, so then I got to realize that I can see without seeing something physically in front of me. So if I can see what I don't physically see, then I might as well visualize it going the right way. What about you, Ms. Tilla? Thoughts?
Everything that you ladies have shared, I think that as women, we can all relate because there's something, relationships or finances and taking care of children, especially taking care of children, and not just as women, but as individuals. In listening to everyone, the root, it seems to be, is fear. Fear, and then the fear creates this mental state that develops into anxiety and depression and hopelessness and all things negative. And so those thought processes, you get to the place where you're just bombarded with negative thoughts over and over and over again. And I know for me, one of the greatest things that I had to overcome was, as a mom, I used to worry about my daughter. You know, they come home, they're so little, the little thing. She can't tell me what she needs. She can't tell me what she wants. And then you stay awake all night just to see if that little sucker's breathing over there, and you're watching it just to see the cover move, because you hear all these negative things about, or not negative, but things happen to children. And then they go off to school for the first time. They go to the daycare, or they go to kindergarten, and you're petrified because, oh my God, suppose they need me and they can't call me. And then you have all these thoughts, and then it just goes haywire from there. And then fear creeps in and gets a stronghold mentally, and those thoughts just continually replay. And I found that I have to say to the thoughts, I have to speak out loud. I would have to speak out loud and say the opposite of whatever I was being attacked with mentally. And that would stop that overthinking process so that I could move forward into a different conversation in my mind. So it's very important to identify what the root cause of that overthinking really is. And once you identify that, then you know how to address it. Would you agree, Rzeann?
Yes, I definitely agree. As I'm hearing all you wonderful, brilliant ladies talking about overthinking, it made me realize that when I overthink, it's because when I actually care about someone or something. Yeah, because the fact is, when I'm overthinking something, it's occupying my mind. I'm giving attention to that particular topic or that person. So I also realized that when I overthink, it's because the truth and the root of the matter is I actually care about, the relationship or that person or that thing. I think the danger in that is that when I overthink, I misinterpret the emotions or misinterpret what is being said or how it's being said, or so I think overthinking leads to a lot of misinterpretation. Particularly I think recently it will be like from me and my husband. Sometimes when he say little statements, I go and he'll just stop there, but then in my mind it goes racing, like, why did he say that? Why would he say that? But actually, it's just overthinking and misinterpretation, overinterpretation. Maybe what I could learn is that when he tells me something, it's just a statement. It stops there. It's not a comma. It's a full stop. Yeah. What do you girls think
what you
about?
Said about overinterpretation, though. Overinterpreting, you could definitely create a new series of unwanted emotions from something that wasn't even expressed, because we're over here in the overthinking of assumptive zone of someone else's model of the world, and then it's not fully integrated with our model of the world. So it's like, unless we address it, we're not going to get to the root of it. Unless it happens, unless we say what we're supposed to say on that stage, or mess up and allow ourselves to just go through it and drop out of our head and allow ourselves to stand in our beingness and in our expression, then what are we really experiencing? Are we experiencing mind from here or mind from our heart center? So I love that. Thanks for that inspiring thought. Now I'm really thinking about that.
Thank you for saying that. And I think also, as I mentioned before, the experience of overthinking allows that space to reflect on the sources everyone said and the why. And I think that in my case, I realized that there were things that needed to come out. And like Jazzy said, you got to say it, like that you hold that in, it's going to come out in some way, whether it's through overthinking, through lack of sleep. I mean, that's one of the things that for me, when I overthink, it's really hard for me to sleep. And I don't want that to happen, but it happens. And so there are things within me that I need to work on, obviously, as a person. That way I can come into a relationship healthier. And the other thing too that I realized is that when I was overthinking, I wasn't fully present, and as a result, I wasn't being my authentic self. And I think in the long run, what we want to be is be authentic to ourselves and who we are. And I think if I'd given myself the opportunity to be in the present moment, not just in relationships, but even when it comes to big opportunities in life, whether it's me moving somewhere or taking that job that might be, it might be so good for me, but I'm overthinking it because I'm thinking, okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? There are opportunities that I know I've missed in my life as a result of my overthinking. And moving forward, I know that I want to change that pattern because it is a pattern. And unfortunately, it's a pattern that has stopped me from a lot of great and wonderful things. And as I mentioned, I love that everybody here has had an experience and is aware. And that's the first step. The first step is awareness that there is that pattern, and patterns can be broken. They can. And so anyone out there who struggles with this overthinkingness, there is a way out. And we are going to discuss that today.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for that. One of the things that I've been practicing on this to slow my mind down, to calm my mind. And the reason is I love my authentic self, but I can't be authentic if I'm in the future trying to plan or trying to create something that is beyond my ability to create. And so I love my authentic self. So how do I do that? I practice being neutral. And there's another reason for that. And that takes practice, not looking at things and reading into things and creating a reality that isn't real. How many times have you felt misunderstood by someone who in their mind created a reality and you're like, what happened to the script? Where was I when that script was created? That's what happens to us when we overthink. We're either the recipient of it and you're like, wow, that isn't really me at all, or we create that reality and impose that on the people around us. So in practicing neutrality, I observe, I'm like, that's what's happening. Okay, that's how they're feeling today. That's not about me, that's about them. And by doing that, I can appreciate people, not take it personally and not affect my energy. But it's a practice, and it's something that I practice daily, and sometimes I miss, but I'm getting better at it. But I realized that my overthinking was creating realities that didn't exist.
I love that, Laura. It's like when you overthink, it's like it's two movies, right? Playing one in your
Yes.
mind and one in reality. So it's amazing. And writing on that, I just wanted to share how do we spin out of that overthinking thoughts. And one of the ways that I did very much is through processing those thoughts with a really good friend. So I love talking to friends when that happens, and then they help to clarify those overthinking thoughts. And really, when best friends point it out to you straight to your face, that's the best thing.
That's a really good way to address those things.
Yeah.
I think I said for me earlier, depending on what the thought is and what the moment is and whatever's going on, I actually speak out loud to the thought. If it's a negative thought, I tell that negative thought to go away, and I replace it with a positive thought. And I will say, for instance, if I am having these thoughts of worrying about my child, that something's going to happen to her, I will say, no, my child is fine. nothing will happen to her. Nothing evil is going to come her way. So I replace my negative with a positive, and I actually say it with my mouth so that I can hear it myself and it registers with me mentally. And then I continue to think on that positive thought instead of allowing that negative thought to take control. And that helps me a whole lot. It has been quite effective in my mental state, because we can get into overthinking and get into worry and get into depression and get into anxiety if we allow it. But stopping it, identifying it, and taking authority over it and controlling it really can make a difference.
I love what you said, Matilda, replacing that with positive thoughts, and even not just in your mind, but saying out loud. That's really wonderful. Yeah. And talking about overthinking, I just recalled a client who actually when women and overthinking thoughts, based on my experience, it's a fact, they overthink a lot. So rather than denying it and trying to push it away, what I recommend is that you allow those overthinking thoughts, but then you actually set a time for it. So for example, I'm going to overthink right now and just let my mind go free, but it's going to be 10 minutes. And then you can go all out overthinking whatever you want to, and have fun with it. and then it stops. Yeah. So allowing that space to overthink.
I also think it would be good to do something that I was introduced to through a meditative practice, which is visualize those thoughts in your head like leaves in the wind. So, like, kind of think of each thought, each anxious thought you're having as, and close your eyes and visualize as if there are leaves falling from a tree. And each leaf is a thought, and they're just falling to the ground, or they're being taken by the wind, and that's it. So you just visualize it for that moment, written on that leaf, and you just let it go with the wind. And I had somebody do that with me over a Zoom call, and it was like less than 5 minutes. And when I woke up, I was like, wow, that actually feels good. Like, it just went with the wind. I don't need to think about that anymore. They're gone. So if you need a visualization technique, that's another way that I heard you can work on that. And I actually have started applying that really recently. So yeah, that's one of the ways that you can definitely use for that.
I love the practical application of that you shared with that quick exercise. And I think that also brought up an important point to me, which was, as you said, Zian, like sharing with other friends, but also make sure that your friends are in the vibrational state that you want it to be on. Because, you could have your friends who support some negative thinking, but also if you're going to seek counsel, make sure that it's good counsel. Make sure that you're seeking coaching or someone that you can really rely on to give you that good advice, because you can have two people overthinking something and it could be just a total tornado. So good point. And I love that exercise. I'm gonna try it the next time I dare to overthink something.
Jazzy, I remember you mentioned something about switching from a state of doing to being, and I thought that was brilliant. So yeah, I want to hear you elaborate more about that.
Yes. So, and to touch on what we've brought up earlier between Miss Laura and Miss Jen, when it comes to masculine and feminine, I think that does play a big role in us as individuals and human beings. That so the masculine is the yang energy, which is in charge of the doing and the action and getting it done and that aspect. And then the feminine is the thinking, the feeling, the creativity. So when we are out of balance, then we could be avoiding of situations, overthinking situations, and we're not really secure with ourselves. And so what that creates is this formula for disaster, essentially. But once we drop out of the mind and out of the thinking and overthinking and drop into the heart and focus on the centeredness of our being, what is it that we're being in the moment? So if in the moment we're overthinking, then the subjective would be that we are anxious. Our emotional state that we're taking on is fearful. We're being not present with what we really want. We're not present with our authentic self. Because in the teachings of Abraham Hicks, she talks about the downward stream where everything just flows and goes. And so if everything is just flowing and going, that's us being in alignment. And when we're out of alignment is when we experience thinking, thoughts, and emotions that are unwanted, undesired. So that means we're creating resistance with who our authentic self is. So the invitation is to allow ourselves to listen to our inner guidance system of what our authentic self wants. Whether that's expressing something, feeling something, clearing space, preparing ourselves, or just creating that moment where we're present with what we want to deliver, what we want to put out, what we want to receive. How are we going to get that need met? And how are we just going to get through A to B without worrying about all the logistics of A point to B 3 4 and whatever formula that we're creating? Because it's easy to overcomplicate. So once we drop out of the mind and into our heart, it kind of like you already know what it is. Your thoughts and your ego want to create new constructs, but to simply apply that, what do we want to create, and how can we create from what we choose to be in each moment to moment?
I love that.
That makes sense.
Yeah, see, that was beautiful. I think for our listeners, it's really important to know you can drop from your head into your heart, but it's not an overnight thing. And just from a personal standpoint, I did practice through meditation. And I did deep breathing exercises. I did practicing feeling what I was feeling, but making sure that my head didn't take over, but I was able to feel in my heart. And it's a practice. And so I would encourage you, if you're listening to this and you want to quiet your mind, consider some type of meditation practice. And for those of you who have overactive minds, it will feel like torture at the beginning, but it is well worth it in your authentic life, and your loving heart will come out as you go through that practice.
Laura, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And Jazzy, thank you for sharing that. Thank you, because it's a reminder that there is a heart space that we can all harness in our experiences in our lives. And I'm reminded of the fact that that's kind of sort of comes back to when people say like healing the inner child. When you were young and you were a child, my God, you would be out there running. And if you would scrape your knee, you wouldn't, you'd be like, I'm just going to get up and I'm just going to keep running. I mean, there was a period in your life when you were just filled with such joy, being in the moment with your friends or even just yourself. And I'm reminded that in those instances, in those experiences that are important to you, if you could just be in the moment like a child and just enjoy it, how much you can get out of that and not let your head stop you from that experience. If I could go back and redo what I just went through and just come from the space of like childlike wonder and joy, I bet you would have been a very different result. But again, I welcome all of you to get back in touch with that inner child and remember what it was like to just run and keep running, even if you scraped your knee, and just enjoy it.
I love that, Jen, and that reminds me of my own child. Just yesterday when she was experiencing something and I could literally see her overthinking mind like swirling there, and she just went quiet. And then she just burst out all that emotions and I just let her. And when she did, and she told me her thoughts, her emotions, and why she's feeling like that, and I could really see that sense of relief on her face. And she was just, sometimes we could learn to be that little child, just, let it out, release it, and feel so much better.
A little child full of passion, jubilance, and zeal, right, Miss Tilla?
Absolutely. I think as we continue to grow, we get to look in the mirror and take a real close look at what is it that caused us to leave that place of joy, that place of peace, that place where we could be spontaneous and we could approach life like a child, the circumstances of life, and living according to someone else's expectations, and being so fearful of tomorrow because of what someone else says it has to be like. It's a wonderful opportunity as you enter into a meditative state just to let all that go. And I know you hear us, how can you just let it go? Believe me, you can. You can. I never really practiced meditating until starting last summer, and to get into a place of quietness where you look within and find that stillness, it really is transformative, and it really can lead you into a space where when those thoughts are bombarding you, you can retreat to that still place, quiet yourself, and turn that negative into a positive. It's entirely possible. And thank you, ladies. Everything that you have shared tonight has been a beautiful reminder of the power that we possess mentally and emotionally and in our soulish realm to be able to enter into the heart space when we really need to retreat deep within ourselves to rest and find that peace that we've lost in times past. It's really beautiful. So where do we go from here, ladies? Where do we go from here?
Okay, well, thank you all for all of the perspectives on this subject of overthinking. And what I've learned and what I'm taking away from this is that on one side, it can generate fear and unwanted emotions and anxiousness and uncertainty and doubt. And that's a choice. And on the other side, it can provide a space to reflect and create new things and new possibilities and view things differently and allow us to go inward. So my question, got a couple questions. How did we grow so far away from our authentic self? And maybe we can reroute it back into really listening to what our authentic self really does want and what it's seeking to experience out of this life. But I'll leave you with one more question to reflect on, which is, in what ways do you apply overthinking? Whether that be transformative or even a negative, because from the contrast, we can always create a new opportunity or move the needle just slightly to a new direction. So if you want to love and support us like we do for you guys, please click subscribe. Make sure that you follow, like, and comment. We are so open and willing to hear what you got to say. We love doing this and showing up for you ladies. And so if you're listening on Spotify, also make sure that you follow there too. Turn on your notification bells. And if you want to, go ahead and reach us at Lotus Chat Worldwide at gmail.com. And for our next episode, I already lost it. Someone support me with this. What's our next episode?
Why do women
hold back?
Why do women hold back? So that should be a fun one to do. And we can't wait to see you again. So bye-bye for now.